Taveras. Welcome to La Conexión, the Connection. The Wilmington Police Department has a victim service unit that also offers services in Spanish. I have here with us Carolyn Becker, who's going to tell the details about this unit. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Gracias.
De nada. So can you tell us a little bit first of how the Wilmington Police Department is reaching out to the Hispanic community?
Sure. Well, besides my position, they have made a concerted effort to go out to the Hispanic community to try to raise interest in becoming a police officer. They put out a lot of information in Spanish and English about what it is like to be a police officer and when the recruitment times are, as well as there's bilingual information now when there are shootings and murders. Flyers are put out bilingually in neighborhoods to make sure all community members have an opportunity to know what's happened in their neighborhood and to respond. And then, of course, my position was established 10 years ago when there was an effort throughout Delaware to have bilingual victim services in the major police agencies. So I've been there 10 years with this program.
¿Y puedes decir en español cómo la policía está ayudando a la comunidad hispana?
Sí, pues la policía de Wilmington empezó un esfuerzo de comunicarse con la comunidad, puso información en inglés y español para que la comunidad sepa más de lo que está pasando en sus vecindarios cuando hay un tiroteo o un asesinato en un vecindario. Ponen diferentes hojas para que la gente estén informados de qué ha pasado y cómo compartir cualquier información que tiene sobre el incidente.
And Carolyn, this is wonderful that the Wilmington Police Department actually has this vehicle for Hispanics to go to. Can you talk about the actual services that are provided through the Victim Service Unit?
We will keep victims informed about their case. We can be a conduit of information between the police and the detectives and the victim. It's easier sometimes to get a hold of us than it is the officers or the detective because they're busy doing their work. And again, I speak Spanish and many of the detectives and officers don't. I accompany victims, all of us in my office accompany victims to court. There are social workers at court as well, but we also, if we're working intensely with a victim, we may also accompany them so they feel comfortable. We let them know about court dates. We also serve as information and referral to other community agencies because whenever you work with anybody on any level, but certainly as a crime victim, people are very vulnerable and they tell you many things and you find out about the situation in the home, you find out about needs, about economic needs, about educational needs. So we very often are getting people to information that they need, economic resources, as well as mental health counseling. We also provide information about a fund. There's a state fund that assists crime victims. There are a few requirements. They have to be innocent victims of crime and they have to cooperate. But then there's a fund to pay for their medical costs. If they have no insurance, it pays for mental health counseling, lost wages if they've lost time on their job because of the injury. Again, the compensation fund has its own stipulations, but in general, this is what they assist with. They assist with funeral and burial costs to the families of victims of homicide.
And when we speak of services for victims of crimes, like what type of crimes in particular?
Our office always says victims of violent crimes. Primarily, we assist with victims of violent crimes. So shooting, stabbing, sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse.
Okay. ¿Y en español qué tipos de servicios ofrecen a la comunidad latina?
Sí, pues ofrecemos en mi oficina ayuda para cualquier víctima de un crimen de violencia. Ofrecemos acompañamiento a la corte si tienen citas en el tribunal, los acompañamos. Si necesitan ayuda de servicios sociales, informamos las víctimas porque muchas veces las víctimas de crímenes tienen otros asuntos y este incidente causa más problemas en su vida. Y si han perdido tiempo en su trabajo, ya ahora necesitan ayuda con los gastos de la renta, de la comida. Ayudamos en referirlos a diferentes agencias que ayudan con servicios económicos. También ayudamos en referir los recursos de servicios de salud mental para que puedan hablar con un consejera, sobre lo que está pasando después del incidente. Causa no solamente heridas físicas, pero heridas mentales y psiquiátricas y emocional. Entonces, ayudamos en dar información de muchos tipos. Además de acompañamos las personas para las citas de corte, informamos las víctimas sobre el sistema de justicia criminal, porque es muy confundido, es muy confuso. Muchas veces no sabemos nada del sistema de justicia criminal hasta que seamos víctimas, y ojalá que no tenemos que pasar por eso muchas veces.
And this is wonderful that you have these services in Spanish, as Carolyn was explaining about the justice system and having these Spanish-speaking citizens here understanding that. And
Yes.
Carolyn, my next question is, I know this program, the Victim Service Unit, is not new. It's been around for a long, long time.
Correct.
So where was the need of educating the Spanish-speaking citizens here in Delaware? Why was there a need to educate them? What did the Wilmington Police Department see that they wanted to fill this void?
I think the Wilmington Police became very aware that there was a growing Hispanic population. There's always been a good-sized Hispanic population in the city of Wilmington, especially. There was a growing population at the around 2005. Many people came because of the booming construction industry, and they came for jobs that were opening. So I think the police saw an increased number of Spanish-speaking victims that were not getting the services that they needed. No, people could not fully explain what was happening in their case. They couldn't accompany them and explain things, how things would go, how things would proceed in the criminal justice system. So there was a knowledge of a lack, and certainly the woman who founded our Victim Services Unit was well aware of that, Mona Byard, and she made an effort to have this position. There was a grant as well that the Criminal Justice Council, the CJC, put out looking for Spanish-speaking victim service providers.
I was just going to say, since you've been on board, what's the growth that you've seen with this unit?
Tremendous growth. When I came on a grant, and I believe the grant wrote that my goal for the first year would be to work with a minimum of 25 victims, and I worked with about 170 victims, or 180, I think, that first year, and it's just grown. I probably work with 350 victims, new victims every year. I'm still often working with folks from years before in different ways, but probably new victims, about 350 a year.
Oh, that's great, though.
Yeah.
And Carolyn, you're very connected with the Latino community here in Delaware. In regards to providing services for immigrants, how does the Wilmington Police Department go about that?
I think the police department understands very well that communities need to be made safe for families to prosper, for families to feel safe, to do well. When families do well, the community does well. And the Wilmington Police were seeing the numbers of Hispanic victims growing. They understand that if they can get people to cooperate in general, crime victims to cooperate, witnesses to talk about the crime they're seeing, and be willing to say, this is what I saw, this is who I saw do it, or give some information, it will only serve to make the community safer. And I think the Hispanic community understands that, and they have really come forward. I speak to so many people who are very brave and willing to talk about what's going on in their neighborhoods because they want a safe place for their children to grow.
And there are benefits. I mean, a lot of people
Yes.
may have that fear, but can you talk about the benefits if someone
Absolutely.
does decide to cooperate with the Wilmington Police?
Absolutely. Besides creating, hopefully, a safer city and neighborhood for themselves, if there was a visa that was established back in 2000, and I'm not sure the year, but it's been around quite a while, and it's a visa for 4 years for folks who may be here without documentation to be in the United States, but they've been here and they're a crime victim, they're seriously injured, and they cooperate with the police. There is a possibility they are eligible for something called a U visa for crime victims. A T visa is a visa for trafficking victims, and there's a visa for domestic violence victims who are self-applicants called VAWA. But these are visas that may offer a 4-year legal stay in the United States, getting a social security number, being able to get a driver's license, pay taxes, because they have cooperated with the police, which leads to safer communities. I think the government saw this as a good goal and a way to get people to cooperate.
That's wonderful. Well, Carolyn, thank you so much for your time and sharing this valuable information.
Gracias.
On behalf of all of us here at WITN 22, I'm Yesenia Taveras. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.